Welcome back to the morning show here on Arise News. Joining us now to speak on the poor performance of women who vied for elective office in the 2019 general elections. He's an advocate for women in politics, Mary Ikoku. So passionate is she about increasing the number of women in elected office that she used her platform, the Emerge Woman, to train some of the female electoral candidates on strategies and communication for their campaign. She's here now to answer that question. What went wrong? Welcome to the morning show, Mary. So, Mary, what went wrong? I know that the last time you were on this program, you were saying, oh, we want more women in parliament, we want more women as governors, but this looks like the worst performance since 1999. If anything, the number of women in elective positions nationwide even went south. What exactly happened, in spite of all that effort to mobilize women?
At least you recognize that we made an effort.
Yeah, yes, yes.
I think that's a good place to start, you know. We've made an effort, and I mean, everything about this whole politics is a work in progress, I must say. But it's really sad that the 2019 election didn't go quite well. I'm not just saying this because I'm a woman. I'm also thinking that even across board, even for the men, a lot of people who have great competences, qualities, and people who would want to see emerge also didn't emerge, not just the women. But the bottom line is that the women have tried their best, but there were a couple of issues, events, and inactions or actions of both the political parties, and even there are even systemic barriers that have stopped women from emerging. But this last election left a very sad taste in the mouth, in the being it that some of the issues I can list from the issue of vote buying is something that you really wouldn't know how much effect it had on women low representation, in the sense that women you're dealing with, we don't have a lot of political war chest to match up the men with the big deep pockets in terms of running for elective offices. Now topping that with vote buying, where are you going to get the money to buy the votes? You see? So it went on a different level this time around. There's also the issue of violence. And the violence we saw during the presidential election, you saw that people, it also you could see the women, the low turnout on the day of governorship election, because a lot of women stayed off. But for the women who ran for office, the political parties just carefully decided not to let them go forward right from the primaries. The high level, the high cost of forms was one major issue. And before, women didn't used to buy these forms, but now it was introduced that they had to pay for them, which is, I don't have a problem with that, because sometimes I think even giving them the forms for free is some kind of tokenism. But give them from bed, allow a level playing ground. But they didn't allow a level playing ground. A lot of these women were kicked out, even the violence were meted out on them. Some of them were asked to step down for their male counterpart. So a lot of things, a whole lot of things. But all of us need to understand that it is very important that we have women at very strategic position in our leadership, in our politics. Because if this country has to develop, we must begin to think seriously about running a very inclusive government. You know, you can never say we have a true democracy, because a true democracy is this democracy that allows everybody to play, every qualified person, every gender. And you cannot claim to have democracy in an election or a system that only allows women to vote for people and not be elected. You see? So we have to make an effort. This time around, we lost it. We had 9 women in the Senate before. We had about 14 women in the Federal House of Assembly. Right now, the number has, I mean, from 5.9%, we are now doing 3.6%. It is shameful, and we all have to do something about it. And it has to take a collaborative effort. The president should be listening right now and should be doing something serious about this. Not only that, 6 women 6 senators emerged. And only last week, Abi, we had the River State, and then Betty Apiafi. We celebrated her emerging, her win, you know, especially because it upped the number by 1. So we have 7 women right now. But in the House of Assembly, we still have the lower House of Reps, the lower house, we still have about 11 women, and it's not
out of 360.
Out of 360.
Very poor indeed. But what do you have to say to those who say, you know, women are responsible for this abysmal performance? They say women should be blamed for their own exclusion in politics. The presidential elections, we had a front runner. Locally, internationally, she was set to have the qualities, not just, you know, to beat her male counterparts, but even her female counterparts. And then 1 month to the election, Dr. Obieze-Kwesili pulled out of the elections. We also had another female candidate who, barely days to the presidential election, stepped down and supported a male candidate.
Is that Eunice?
Eunice, who stepped down and supported Atiku Abubakar for the race. So what do you say to those who say, you know, women themselves are responsible for this?
Well, it's really unfortunate that Dr. Obieze-Kwesili had to make that decision to step down. And I mean, she gave her reasons, which I quite understand. She's a woman who prides herself as someone who has serious respect for her values. And she maintains those values. She keeps them to heart. So we must accept her the way she has decided to play. However, you know that the political terrain doesn't really have any alliance with values, very great value system. So people like Obieze-Kwesili are really people we should begin to look forward to joining politics again, because we need to clean up the system, and we want people who you know, keep those values intact. That said, I must also add that, yes, her dropping out of the race really did a blow on us as women of this country. Why? Because it will have an effect in the future, where people are going to say, okay, we need a godfather, you need a godmother. A godmother will probably ask you, okay, we had a fantastic candidate. Dr. Obieze-Kwesili towered everybody in the race in 2019. All the presidential candidates, they didn't come close to her. She towered above all of them. I must say that. But then she dropped out, you know, for obvious reasons. Of course,
she probably saw what will happen.
Yeah, she saw it, and look at all the mess. Look at how all the insults. Look at all the things they put on her. This politics in Nigeria really will make Jesus Christ look like Lucifer, you know? And that's what they tried to do. Rubbish this woman. This is a woman who was going. I followed her campaign trail one of the times, and we went to Kaduna. We went to Kaduna by rail, that slow rail, and we didn't even, I think the business class is 3,000 naira. But she put all of us in economy, and we went to Kaduna happily because she's trying to serve this country, you know? And then when I came back to read about how she needs to account for, what money are they asking this woman to account for, you know? So, but she did account for them, and you could see how transparent, how much of a transparent election she ran. But that said, you know, what point I'm making is that people are going to come to say, okay, what about the one that gave us so much hope before? You want me to invest in a female candidate? I invest, put down my money. What if I put down my money and she drops out a few weeks to the election? So that's just one downside to it. But we must respect the fact that she ran a fantastic campaign. She could also win that election. She could have also done very well. In a very sane society, we shouldn't even be asking, should we or should we not vote a woman like Dr. Obieze-Kwesili.
Well, she ran a campaign based on issues and ideas.
Issue-based campaigns, and when you listen to her, and I also think that the time they give to politicians to campaign is a bit short. So somebody like Obieze-Kwesili, if you had about 6 months to listen to her, I don't think you would give your vote to anybody else.
Well, let me ask you. You gave us interesting statistics earlier about the reduction in women representation in the legislature. I guess it's the same also at the executive level in terms of the gubernatorial elections and maybe local government assembly elections. I don't know whether you have statistics on that. But in spite of the fact that representation in the federal legislature has dropped to about 3.6, there is a lady, you know, the lawmaker, the female lawmaker from Abia, who says she wants to join this leadership race in the National Assembly. Does she stand a chance? Because the issue is not just about the exclusion of women, it's also about the culture of patriarchy, you know, masculinity, you know, and yes.
I'm actually happy that she's, you know, indicated interest to run for the Speaker of the House of Reps. You know, why? Because sometimes people tell you women don't even aspire. Now, this is a woman who has been in the House for well over...
she's a fourth-time ranking member.
This is her fourth time.
Yes.
And now she's been there under the platform of PDP now, and then she ran under APC, and then she came back. What that tells you that this woman has statecraft. She has the skills. She's consistent. And what leadership qualities do you require to have somebody man that position? I think one of the items on their list is that you have to be a ranking member. She is a ranking member. Another issue is we have to look at how much impact has she made. She's not a sleeping member of the House. This woman has pursued, sponsored, and ensured that bills, not just bills, that have become laws, she sponsored. And, you know, we have those bills. We if you look at the issues, right? Now, you remember the anti-torture bill? She sponsored it. Where you go about torturing people, you don't get people to confess to a crime they did not commit. But through torturing, somebody can confess to a crime he or she did not commit, you know? But this woman saw that these are human, you know, bills that have human faces. There's also the you know, the bill about, I don't know if you remember the senior citizens bill. Was she not the one that sponsored that bill? I mean, we should look at this issue of speakership critically and look at what kind of quality are we expecting that the leadership of the House, the lower house...
Zoning doesn't favor her. It's not enough for her to declare interest in the position.
Let's leave that.
That position is not zoned to the southeast.
What we are looking at, who is doing this zoning, what we are looking at, this country, we really need to get serious. And when we talk about zoning, we will come to zoning. It's very important that you've raised. It's a very valid point, and I must agree with you, you know. But I'm talking about somebody who has pushed a bill like compulsory treatment for gunshot. This one touches me personally. You remember the late Professor Ikoku, 2 times Vice Chancellor of University of Nigeria and Nsukka, was in PTF with President Muhammad Buhari for the number of years they were in PTF. He was the Southeast trustee on the board of PTF. You remember how he was killed? He was shot right in his home. How many hospitals was he taken to in Enugu? And none of those hospitals could treat him, an old man of 74 years, a senior citizen of that have served this country to the point he did. They refused to treat him because the hospital said there was a gunshot wound policy that he won't be treated until they get a police statement. Now, this woman also sponsored a bill, which has become law. It was one of the first bills that President Muhammad Buhari assented to in 2016. If you remember. So this is the person we are talking about. What kind of a country? Why should we have, you know, people who would set us free, lead us forward, and we're still trying to take ourselves? And when you're talking about, let's even discuss the issue of zoning. The president is from the north, a northern Muslim, zoning, right? Now, I'm also hearing that the Senate president,
the anointed
Senate president, please remind me, which zone is that?
It's from the north.
It's from the north. Muslim or Christian?
Muslim.
Let's talk about the second tier of government. There are 3 tiers, right? Not tiers. You have the division, there's the judiciary,
okay.
There's the executive, and there's the legislature. You also have the judiciary, the NJC, who is at the helm of affairs. Who is the CJN? A Christian? Is he from the southeast or southwest or where? He is from the north and is Muslim. Now, because I'm raising this point because you talked about zoning. Now, Honorable, this woman, Nkiruka Onyeojocha, is seeking the position of what? Speakership. Come on. With all of this, you still want us to do another Muslim ticket? I think we need to really start to tell ourselves the truth in this country and understand, except there's an unwritten constitution that people from a certain part of this country should never hold any strategic leadership position top level. Unless, that's the only thing maybe we can begin to understand. But as it stands with what we've discussed here, I do not really, in all fairness, think that the zoning is an issue here. Because the most important thing is that she even indicated interest. And I'm very excited about it. Because I know when I talk about women representation, I'm not one to call for just any woman. It is about quality representation. And this is what we would have in our House of Assembly, our House of Representatives, if Nkiru Onyeojocha becomes the Speaker. I think it's something we should be looking at. And the President, the Executive, the National Assembly should really think seriously about this, because it won't just be about her now. It's not even a question of her being a woman. It's just a question of she's competent, she has all it takes, she has sponsored and gotten bills that affects the life of the ordinary man and woman in this country. And again, Nkiru Onyeojocha also is somebody that is not afraid to pursue truth, to bring the issues on the table, to make laws that are impactful. So, hey, should we really be having... I think they should just be thanking her for even stepping forward. Don't you think so?
Well, do you agree with that? Well, I know you have discussed zoning endlessly on this program.
I've discussed zoning, so I don't see that.
It's interesting to see another female speaker who would serve a longer term, hopefully. We do wish her the best, really, if she comes up. I remember Ete we had in the past. But let me take you back to Patricia Ete. But let me take you to the general elections. When you look at the breakdown of those collected PVCs, apart from the young people, I think the women came next in the highest block. It would seem as if the female candidates do not get, enjoy the advantage of female voters. So even female voters do not seem to vote female candidates to power.
Before I answer that question, I would really like, because you touched on Nkiru being there for a longer time. But when she becomes the Speaker, she's going to be there for as long as she should be, right? And I know you are referring to a former Speaker who didn't last for a long time. Patricia. And under the circumstance, she was removed. You see, the truth is that they've also been men who have been speakers, who had Chicago degrees and fake results and issues that also didn't pan out well, and they got removed.
Not Chicago, I thought it was Toronto.
Toronto. Remember the Toronto? Chicago is actually very close to me right here. So there's the Toronto issue. I was a Toronto speaker as well. So these things, I think sometimes we have, when it comes to these issues, I think society often has a higher expectation of standards when is a woman. So if we look at that, I think we should also understand that women already know that the society expects so much from them in terms of standard. And coming to the issues you've raised about the general election and the number of women who are have the PVC, the electorate really. I think, I wouldn't say that women are not taking advantage of their population. What I would say is that women do not yet understand the power in their share population. How much they have continued to elect the opposite gender. How it is us who have continued to ensure that this inclusivity of all gender is not happening. Because the truth is that the United Nations is strong on this, in the sense that running an inclusive government is a development index which Nigeria must also be seen to be developing, and we must pay heed to that. And because these people have come through so many years of patriarchy, it's just that we need a lot of mindset shifts, so that when women aspire and step forward to lead, other women and men, because we'll also step out to support, give them the desired support. You know, it's not, I always try to let people know that this is not a woman versus man issue. It's really about a society doing what is right. Because we keep shortchanging this country. We're shortchanging ourselves by not utilizing the potentials, the intelligence, the competences, and all the excellence that the women of this country will bring to bear. Because we have these things, we have women. Which of the women do I mean? We have so many fantastic women, competent leaders that are ready to change and transform the leadership, political space in this country. But we also have to make that happen and support women when they step forward. Well,
President Buhari has promised that he will run an inclusive government. Do you believe him? And besides, it's not an issue for President Buhari alone. Will you be recommending affirmative action to the governors-elect in terms of the kind of appointments that they make? And what kind of representation, gender representation, would you like to see in President Buhari's future cabinet?
Okay, from where we are right now, I think it would just be, I wouldn't want to ask for too much by asking for 50%, which is the right thing to ask for. But I would say there's also the national gender policy on 35% affirmative action. Maybe it's a great place to start from, you know, because I always tell people that all you need to form a critical mass in decision-making process is 30%. So with the government being a caring government, giving this 35% affirmative action for women inclusivity, I think is the right step, is the right place to start from. So I think it would just be nice for President Muhammad Buhari to look critically at his appointments this time around. Because you see, where we've come so low to 3.6%, it's not something we should really be talking about on our national TV, because it's very shameful. And it's not just shameful to women, it's really something the men shouldn't be proud of, you know? So if it behoves on the president and his cabinet to correct this abnormally, because it's not just okay. He can ensure that happens, and also, you know, go the extra mile. We are calling on governors of various states of the country to see that there's a gap here and ensure that they close those gaps. And how they can do that is to look at the quality women in their states, in this country. We have a lot of them across board, across sector, across zones, across religion. So if anywhere you want, we don't fall short of intelligent, smart, and competent women all over the country. If you want to bring them from the diaspora, we have them in numbers. So there is really no reason why we shouldn't do the right thing. And I think the president, from the last one, I wouldn't say I am hopeful, based on how it's been how his administration has been, how his cabinet has been put together. But I want to really give him a chance, because you can't really say this is how somebody will perform when the person hasn't really been given the opportunity to perform. He has said he's going to run an inclusive government. I think it's only necessary. I think the right thing to do is to also give him that benefit of the doubt and watch and see, if possible, even write him, make recommendations, because these are not things people should be mouthing about. We should stop from, and I don't know, it's also important to know at what point did he make that comment. Because what you say when you are in the presence of a women group and what the actions you take at the end of the day, sometimes they don't align. So what is important is the president walking his talk. That's why I say I don't know at what...
Well, one good piece of news is that he has beside him Aisha Buhari, his wife, who, like you, is also a strong advocate for women representation and women empowerment. So we hope that maybe in the other room, you know, the First Lady would have to push the envelope further to make sure that the president delivers on his promise. Well,
the First Lady would only try to do what she can do. But, you know, when it comes to that issue, the First Lady, who unfortunately belongs to the kitchen, is a narrative that I think the president and maybe his handlers may really need to take our time to address this issue, because it's never going away. Because every time, and I feel funny about it, that each time this issue is discussed, it shows up. Why? Because it hasn't really been addressed. And the attempt to address it made it even worse. That video is there. So each time it pops up, it reminds you. And I don't also think, I think the president also is somebody who tells the truth a lot. So he just drops it like that. It may not really be that this is what he intends to do overall, you know? So sometimes I think it's best to just give people a benefit of the doubt. And I'm hoping Aisha Buhari has been also showing interest in women inclusion. She's been saying it, she's been talking about it. But we can't also forget a few interviews that she has granted and a few speeches she has made where she said, where she had alleged that just 15 million people elected her husband and 1 or 2 people are running the government. Well, so those things, I hope it doesn't really replicate, you know, show up again. I hope we will have our president this time around working for all of the millions of people that voted for him.
Yes, the president's responsibility is to work for all Nigerians.
All Nigerians.
And to address our interests. Thank you very much, Mary Ikoku. Nice to have you again on the morning show.
Thanks for having me.